We're going to be, and I guess we're live. Look at us.
Hey,
Hello,
we
everyone in the chat. This is Andrew Hall, and with me is Suzanne. And I'm going to do my good faith effort in not butchering your last name. Titkemeyer?
Titkemeyer, exactly how it's spelled.
Excellent. So I'm just going to read your bio that I found over on Pathos on the blog No Longer Quivering. And here we go. Suzanne Titkemeyer went from a childhood in Louisiana to a life lived in the shadow of Washington, D.C. For many years, she worked in the field of social work, from national licensure to working hands-on in a children's residential treatment center. Suzanne has been involved with helping the plights of women and children in religious bondage. She is an ordained Stephens minister with many years of counseling experience. Now she's retired to be a full-time beach bum. Tamarindo?
Yeah, I'm a beach bum. Tamarindo, Costa Rica.
With the monkeys and iguanas. She's also a thalassophile, which I learned the meaning of that word today, which is an ocean lover, as a fan of the sea, as I understand.
The sea, yes, absolutely. I'm a mile and a half from the ocean. And that's the way it should be.
She also left behind years in a Quiverfull church and loves to chronicle the worst abuses of that particular theology. She has been happily married to her best friend for the last 32 years. You know, I was married to someone who was really indifferent to me for about 20 years. So that must be nice, being married to someone who likes you.
It is, because I was married for a very short length of time to a guy who he was not very good. He was somebody that used to abuse me and torture me and stuff. We were only married a couple of years. And it took me a long time before I was like getting married again, because I always said never I would get married again. But I did.
Well, it seemed to work out pretty well for you, 32 years in.
It has. Nobody's buried anybody else in the backyard yet, even though there have been a couple threats of that.
Right. So, Suzanne, for people who don't know what the Quiverfull movement is, what is it?
What is what? I'm sorry, you're cutting out.
I got you. The Quiverfull movement. For people who aren't aware of what the Quiverfull movement is, how would you characterize it?
Well, Quiverfull is a little odd because it's not like Catholicism or being a Baptist. It cuts all the way across. There are Catholic Quiverfulls. I've seen people who aren't even any type of religion or Quiverfull. Basically, it's a theology that believes that your entire role as a woman on this planet is to have as many children as possible, because God said, be fruitful and multiply, and that is your job. You have all those children, you homeschool them, you raise them, and then it gets squirrely from there. Depends upon the religious aspect of it. You see a lot of it in Independent Fundamentalist Baptists, the New Independent Fundamentalist Baptist, Assemblies of God. The more right-wing they are, the more likely you're going to find this theology, even if they don't claim it. Like the Duggars. The Duggars swear they're not Quiverfull, but they absolutely are, including using the same justifications and scriptures as everybody else uses.
You know, I've never heard, I was watching one of your videos on your YouTube channel, and I never heard the term Duggar Hugger before.
Well, you know me, I'm a smart ass, so I have to come up with something comical to call some of these people. Duggar Hugger is somebody else in it that fits them perfectly, because Duggar supporters will double down on the worst things. Like, say one of the kids was caught with an axe and had killed somebody. They would have said that person would have fallen on the axe, and the Duggar just happened to be holding the axe. That's how far they will justify their Duggar love.
And the Duggars are apparently on reality TV. There's at least one show, two shows. They seem to have a franchise.
They do. And Jim Bob Duggar is jealously guarding that franchise. He is really the worst at it. I've tangled with him a couple of times because he's tried to get after me about photos I've used. He will send you cease and desists. So he's not a very nice guy, but he pretends he's a nice guy on TV. That's what's interesting about him. He's just a control freak. He controls everybody in that family. The kids don't even work.
The kids don't work.
Having children left and right, none of them at work. They're all part of the family thing.
Nice, nice. So the blog, no longer quivering.
Mm-hmm.
How long have you been doing that?
10 solid years.
Right.
And before that, I used to help out some with Vicki Garrison, who started the blog. But took it over when Vicki's health got too bad. And I've been doing it 10 years, almost every single day for all that long. And I feel like kind of I've run the course now. There's nothing new under the sun, as they say.
Mm.
And we're just repeating ourselves.
Yeah.
And the IFB has gotten really strange lately. I'm getting crazy threats from them. So it's time to maybe do something else.
Yeah, I was watching. Well, you did a video and you wrote a blog about your stepping back.
Yes.
From daily writing on the blog.
Yep.
Because it's a grind, isn't it? Just writing.
It is a huge grind. You're the only other one I've seen besides me that seems to crank out content every single day.
Well, I'm crazy, Suzanne. I am crazy.
I'm a little crazy too. I must be, because I'm doing it too every single day, cranking it out and doing all these side projects. So, right. You know how the money went with being media. So I went from making decent money to making no money. I make enough now to it.
Right.
You add in all the threats from the new IFB. What happened with them is about 4 months ago, I discovered that Stephen Anderson, the Pope of the new IFB, he had covered up teenage sexual abuse in his church that involved at least 3 of his sons, maybe more, involved other young men of the church. We're talking guys from 18 to like 25. And they were pressuring girls 13 to 14 years old for sex. And when I exposed that, Stephen went from merely disliking me to thinking I was Jezebel. So I've gotten some of the craziest threats in the world because I exposed that. But I'm glad I did, because I got social services involved in that city. The police investigated it.
Mm-hmm.
And there were some consequences. I haven't heard all of it yet, but that's okay. That's enough for me.
Right. The IFB, is that is the Independent
Fundamentalist Baptist.
Right.
But see, the thing with the Independent Fundamentalist Baptist is Stephen Anderson is the new IFB. He's the Pope of the new IFB, which they're even crazier and more out there than IFB is pretty normal. I tell people it's kind of like the IFB is McDonald's, and the new IFB is like Whataburger. You won't find them very many places. They're extremely weird compared to regular burgers, but they're basically a burger. It's the same thing. Same thing.
Sure.
So when that happened, they started sending me crap about how they're going to come down Costa Rica, hold me down, and shave my head. For a long time, I was like, why would you shave my head? What the hell? What kind of threat is that? Threaten to kick my rear end, but don't threaten to shave my head. That's just stupid.
Right.
I'll do it for you. I'll shave my own head. It's just hair. And they've gotten worse since then. So, and I also have a stalker who's suing me.
How can a stalker sue you?
She tweets me anywhere from 5 to 200 times a day.
Wow.
And I have her blocked, and she has just gone after me hardcore. Well, now she's trying to sue me in Costa Rica for having mentioned her 5 times at NLQ, which I took those things down months ago on my lawyer's advice, and I blocked her. So when you start looking at the hassle of that, combined with the fact that this is a dying cult, It is. And a lot of people have covered it. And different book projects ongoing right now too. So I'm trying to get my book out.
Right. Well, that's, that must be one of the benefits of not having to write every day, is that you actually get to write a book.
It's a big benefit.
So Stephen Anderson and the new Independent fundamentalist church. They are whenever I think of the worst aspects of fundamentalist Christianity, I think of that guy. Am I off base on that?
No, you're not off base. This is a guy that has been declared a hate group by both the Justice Department and the Southern Poverty Law Center. This guy has threatened various people's lives. I was talking last night to somebody who is a farmer, because that's another interesting thing that came out of this is once I started exposing that, the people that he kicked out like 30 or 40 people, they all started coming to me and spilling all the dirt. Like stupid stuff, like a couple of days, last month they went after Dr. Sam Gipp, I think it is. He's a pastor who's been critical of them. 16 of them showed. Fortunately, his gardener managed to prevent them from coming anywhere near him. But we're talking about lunatics, violent lunatics.
Right. It seems like the three. I was reading one of your recent blog post articles about the burgers and these particular crazy sects of Christianity, and you have the NFIB, the IFB, and the IBLP, which is the Institute of Basic Life Principles.
Yes, or ATI, Advanced Training Institute. That's Bill Gothard. They're not actually a religion like NIFB is.
Okay.
The reason I had to do that is I had a very influential blogger that was trying to say that all three of them were the same thing. And I had so many people that questioned me about it. I finally just said, well, I got to come up with a way to explain what the differences are between those three. Because the ATI, IBLP, Bill Gothard, and he is connected to the Duggars. That's the religion that's the thing they follow. But like I said, they're not the same thing as the new independent fundamentalist Baptists or the regular old fundamentalist Baptists. They're all very different.
Right.
They're different but the same, if that makes any sense.
Well, I really liked your burger analogy because they are all burgers in a sense. They're all this crazy fundamentalist flavor of Christianity, Protestant Christianity, but there are definitely differences between the chains.
Mm-hmm.
So, so what books are you going to be working on?
I have one I've been working on over a year now. I'm getting close to finish. It's about the Carol Ann Cole murder. She was a girl that disappeared in Michigan like 35, 36 years ago, turned up dead in Louisiana. And to this day, her case is unsolved. The sheriff's department has been less than helpful. They even at one point said that, I can't even think of that serial killer's name. There was a serial killer in the early 80s that was confessing to everything. He confessed to that when it turned out he was in jail in Florida. So this is a case that's been mishandled since day one. I wrote a series about it for NLQ because the girls that were at a independent fundamentalist Baptist troubled teen home had been bugging me about it, saying, you've got to write about this. Because the girl was found very near there. She was found wearing the clothing from that particular organization, but that organization says they had nothing to do with her. So she was shuttled from home to home to home. Nobody knows what happened to her. She ended up dead on a logging road in North Louisiana. And there's just so much that hasn't come out about it.
How old was she when she died?
17.
17. Wow.
Yeah.
It's crazy that these groups who run these radical right fundamentalist churches or sects, they seem to be intimately connected with running camps for kids, for teenagers, for these the troubled teen homes.
Mm-hmm.
And it just seems to be a system that just has abuse baked into it.
It does. I said in the book in one chapter that I think that there's a large possibility that the main reason that these things exist is twofold. Provide victims for a sadistic community. And number two, to provide sex trafficking victims. I'm hearing more and more stories that lead me to believe that there's a great deal of sex trafficking that goes along with this. I have no hard and fast evidence of it, but it sure seems likely.
Right, because when you look at the kids who, and we both worked with troubled kids. You
Yes.
much more than I have. I worked at a residential home for boys for a little bit under a year, and the rest of my time I've spent with adults.
I
But
worked at child help for some time. So
right,
if you know what child help is, yeah.
so people who get children who are sexually abused are typically targeted because they happen to have no support systems around them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And these homes and these camps just seem to be pretty much just places where they can be groomed for this kind of abuse.
Exactly. And the particular home I'm talking about, New Bethany Home for Girls in Arcadia, Louisiana, many times the state troopers would go for a long time. I couldn't figure out what is that about? A truck stop?
Mm-hmm.
Well, in that area, you have two major interstates crossing, a major east-west route and a major north-south route. And okay, and it's my husband.
Okay.
And they were jumping into the truck stops. And I kept looking at that. And then I started looking at the FBI's, their website. They actually have a group that all they do is look at serial killers that are truckers and sex trafficking. So there's something going on there that's really weird that I'm going to examine in more detail with the girls.
Yeah.
Because it does seem like that something was going on when the place was open. Thankfully,
right.
It's not open anymore.
So the what was her name again? Carol
Ann Cole.
So this woman, she goes missing. This teen, she goes missing. She ends up in Louisiana, and no one really does.
Missing in Texas.
In Texas,
nobody knows how she went from Texas to Louisiana. No clue. She popped up in Louisiana, in the Shreveport area, Bossier City.
Right. And this has been a case for what, 35 years old at this point? 30 years?
35, 36 years. It's been a case. She's been missing all that time. Her family's been trying to figure out where she was. A couple of years ago, they finally did a DNA analysis and figured this has been, I mean, just about everything you could think of that would be mishandled has been mishandled, from all the evidence burning up in a fire to I've seen the autopsy report. It's not much of an autopsy report. The police say, oh, we're working on it. We know who did it. We know how she got here. You still haven't arrested anybody, made any statements or anything. So I've come to the conclusion they don't have a clue.
Right.
And it could have been one of 7 or 8 different people I outlined in the book. It could have been the murderer. They're saying that the murderer is somebody who is already dead.
I have a naive question. Because the person went over state lines, is it a federal case at all?
I'm not sure, quite frankly. I don't think the feds have ever been involved with her case at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, because of her age, because she was aging out of the system. They would have had to release her anyway eventually.
Sure. So, Suzanne, you've been blogging for a long time. You've been doing YouTube for a shorter period of time. What is the thing that you learned doing this kind of thing that you didn't expect to learn? Something that you found important, but it's like, wow, I didn't realize that. I would find out about that.
Well, I think one of the strangest things is especially with YouTube, I've learned how much people crave connectiveness, to being connected with other people, because I'm kind of an introvert in real life, and I'm very happy here in my little office, and I don't need as much interaction with other people, but apparently other people do. and you can learn something from them every time too.
That's nice. So I have to ask you something, and I can't believe that we've done this for 20 minutes and we haven't mentioned. I haven't asked you about what's it like down there regarding COVID, about the virus? Because up here it's nothing but
It's a cluster.
it is it is cluster F, and it's just one day of nuttery after another. But what's it like where you are?
Well, first of all, I just have to throw one aside in. The last 2 months have been absolute hell online. That's what's driven me off because of the death threats and everything else. People have lost their damn minds. I don't know what's going on, except to say that COVID and the uncertainty over the election has got to be impacting everybody. Costa Rica, at first they did it really well. At first, they did a lockdown. They did. In fact, we were scrambling because we had to go renew our visas. Our visas were running out. You got to leave every 90 days and get your visa stamped. And usually that's an hour and a half run up to Pinas Blancas. And cross the border there, get your passport stamped, come back. Well, we ran up there and did it. I'm glad we did the last day that the border was open because that kept our driver's licenses active. So we did the smart thing. But at the same time, Costa Rica locked everything down days later. I mean, everything. Hospital, a pharmacy, or a grocery store. Everything else was just locked.
Wow.
And you had to stay home. And it was not mandatory masking at that point. They were recommending it. And they did that for 4 weeks. And it was pretty terrible, but pretty awful, but pretty awesome at the same time. I'm living in the edge of a tourist area. It's kind of like living near Panama City Beach, Florida. I don't know if you have any experience with that, where it's just tourists. Yep. So there's certain times of the year I don't even go anywhere near the beach because it's just miserable. But it was shut down. They shut everything down. Our cases went from 100 a day to 1 a day.
Wow. That's significant.
And then, well, yeah, but that's just the first half. The second thing that happened was they said, oh, well, we don't have any money now because there's no tourists coming. And they had to do this at the very end of high season. So said, well, let's unlock for tourism. So that's what they've done. They've unlocked for tourism. We now have a minimum of 1,600 to 3,000 new cases a day. They've stopped testing.
Okay. Wait a minute. So yeah. let's just, so you have 1,600 new cases a day in a relatively small in a relatively small country.
A country the size of Wisconsin with a similar population. We're having similar COVID rates right now. And I'm staying home all the time now, unless I'm running to the grocery store and then I'm got my plague mask on with a big long plague nose. And, that's it. Because, man, I am on so many, I should show you, I'm on so many different damn drugs. It's stupid because of my mast cell. That's another reason to give up writing every day. Because I started developing Meniere's disease.
I saw that, and it's some kind of inner ear. What is that?
Yes. It's an inner ear thing where apparently when I get infected sinuses, my inner ears clog, and then I get so dizzy I have trouble walking. Somebody in downtown Tamarindo pointed at me and called me a drunk one day because I was like staggering like I had been drinking. And I wish I had been drinking. That would have been fun. Sure. Everybody loves drinking, but not me. I'm on too many pills for it. So I kind of laughed about that. Yeah, it's been miserable. It's been since January. My health has been miserable in the middle of this damn pandemic. So I don't even know how much of that applies. But now we have mandatory masking. Okay. But everything's open. Mandatory masking and everything's open. They're reopening to the United States 100% on the 1st of November. And they've already reopened to everywhere else in parts of the U.S. over a month ago. And the flights have not returned. We can't get mail because there's no flights. We don't have mail from the States anymore.
There's just so much nutbaggery with this. So I remember we were chatting on Facebook about this, and you mentioned how you haven't had mail for
no mail,
like no mail, and that. Right.
I take it back. I've had 2 pieces since March.
how do you vote when there's no mail?
Well, I just about had a nervous breakdown over that one because, I've lived in Germany and various places and not always in the U.S. And it's easy to vote by mail usually. Usually you pick up the phone and say, hey, I want a ballot, or you call them or you write them or however. I emailed. Go to voteabroad.org and register to get your ballot. They email you the ballot. That's not a hard thing.
Good.
The problem is because of all the rules and Trump and all his, BS. Instead of getting it 3 months in advance like we usually did, I got it 7 weeks before. You cannot mail something from here to the States in 7 weeks. It just does not work unless you pay for a courier service. That's the only way. And that's usually illegal. They usually won't let you send your ballot by a courier service. But this year they lifted that. So I had all these zillions of questions I was asking and bombarding the embassy and vote abroad. And I finally voted.
Well, that's great.
Mailed it back. Well, I didn't mail it back. I couriered it back and got a tracking number, the whole thing, and they have it. So I did get to vote, thank God. Like I says, normally never like that, but this time was crazy. It's like Trump must have, I don't know what all he did, but it's just nuts. He tried to make it hard.
What do people down there in Costa Rica have to say? What do they think about what's going on up here in the States?
Well, it's pretty interesting. The population here, you have the American population of wealthy guys. And we're like, Trump is the best thing ever. And I'm just like, man, I can't even talk to you. But most of them have gone home now. Almost all of them have gone home. I only know of 2 that are here right now. Mm-hmm. And the rest of us are pretty much about as Trump opposing as you can get. It's kind of a strange dichotomy here with the way some people are. And it's funny because the Ticos will ask you, once you get to know a Tico pretty well, a local Costa Rican, one of the things they'll ask you is, I call it the Costa Rican litmus test. Is, what do you think about Donald Trump?
Oh, okay.
And I always tell them, I said, I can't stand the man. He was not my president,
Right.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Crazy asthma today. So that's the litmus test of it. And all of us here were just worried that we weren't going to be able to vote. But the embassy's been real helpful too. They said that we could get our ballots to them and they would courier them over to the U.S. if you couldn't get any other way. Oh,
that's great.
So Trump's appointee has actually been helpful and been nice. I got to say that. He did one thing right. He put the right person in charge in Costa Rica.
Well, you can say a lot of things about Donald Trump. And one of them is that he's not the most competent administrator. So
no.
So even if he wants to put bad people in good places, he's not even that successful in doing that,
I know.
All the time. So it's good that you got your vote in and that the person at the consulate was able to give you a hand.
Yeah, it was just such a cluster. I could not believe it. Because like I said, I voted from here before and I voted from Germany. I've never had problems before. This was the first.
Right.
So I figured it has to be Trump trying to keep me from voting him out.
So I'm going to guess that the groups that you wrote about, the NIFB, the IFB, they are pretty much, are they hard Trump supporters or are they even more radical than that?
I think it depends. I know that some of them support Trump, some of them don't. I don't have a clue with Steven Anderson what his political views are because he's never really stated. I just know that he's like the right of Barry Goldwater, so I'm guessing that they would be. Now, during Quiverfull, we do see a lot of Trump support. I posted a picture of Jim Bob Duggar's front yard where he had all these flags. He had all these pro-gun nut flags and Trump flags and things. He had one of Trump's head morphed onto John Rambo's body, holding a gun.
I don't know if you saw Donald Trump dancing. I think it was at a Florida.
I saw that because I wanted to put the yakety sax with it. I wanted to redo that and put yakety sax and have him dancing to the Benny Hill theme. Dancing.
Oh, that'd be hilarious. So this is from Tons of Mice. El Señor Trump. I'm going to butcher this with my Boston accent. El Señor Trumpista esta muy loco. I think that means he's just crazy.
Muy loco. He is muy loco. Crazy. Muy loco, most definitely. And everybody here says that. We start talking to the Ticos, it's like, muy loco. Everybody
No,
agrees.
no. Now, Suzanne, this is from the chat, Critical Cripple, and I don't know if you can do this because I know you're in some kind of legal thing going on with this person, but he would like to know what's the Twitter handle of the person on Twitter that is
I
harassing.
cannot say that. I cannot say that. I cannot say that. Mostly because this person has been stalking me and tweeting me all the time.
You can always tell when you can always tell when lawyers are involved because you can't talk about anything.
I know. I'm actually afraid of this person because one of the tweets they sent me said that they were going to stomp my ass. I mean, I was like, what?
What you said before about
Laurie Alexander supporter. Oh, hardcore Laurie Alexander supporter.
Laurie Alexander. Now, who is Laurie Alexander?
She is one of the big Quiverfull cultural enforcers. She's a lady exactly the same age as I, who lives in California, is quite wealthy. Her and her husband are Trump supporters. And she posts the most awful things about how you have to be as a wife. Like if you're being abused, you have to smile and take it. Just be nicer. I mean, that's her whole thing. The most abusive take on everything. So she was somebody that I wrote about all the time because it was like every day I'd get them like, what? Did you say that? Yeah. I said, what the hell is wrong with this woman?
Right.
I said that so many times. I'd get up in the mornings and there'd be Laurie. So I finally figured out that Laurie's maybe not stable. So I haven't been writing about her for a long time. And I blocked this woman. And yeah, so I'm hoping she'll go away now. She did send me a cease and desist through a Costa Rican lawyer last week.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so we'll see.
Lady Starfire from the chat says her YouTube channel is the
Because I think if we had to.
She is the transformed wife person?
The transformed wife. That is exactly who she is.
I know her. I know that name. So that is Laurie Alexander, man.
Oh, and her husband contacted my husband 2 weeks ago on Facebook Messenger and told him to make me behave. That was kind of comical.
That's great.
Yeah. Like, you better make your wife stuff. And I was like, and it was funny because he picked exactly the wrong moment to send that. My husband had some kind of stomach flu. So he looks at me and he goes, some idiot named Ken is PMing me wanting to know if I can make you behave. Deal with him. And he walked away. So I went and talked to Ken. And then Ken didn't even bother answering me. So I just said, okay, whatever, blocked.
You know, Lady Starfire says, besides the laughing, I dare anyone to contact my husband and tell him to make me behave.
Well, you notice my husband didn't jump right on it and start talking to the guy. He said, you deal with this idiot.
Oh, no, that's a sign of someone who is just out of touch with so many things when they're asking a husband to make his wife behave. That is, you know, I would imagine with these groups that have such strict and conservative ethics or ways of behaving, there must be a lot of cultural enforcers out there telling women what to do.
There are a ton of them. And some of them are sneaky. It's funny because sometimes they fall off the radar and somebody else pops up to take their place. I've noticed lately we've had a whole new crop of young ones popping up.
What do you think they get? Do they get money out of it? Do they get status out of it? What's the motivation?
Status. I don't think it's money. Laurie has written several Bible study books that are pretty awful. And so many misspellings and grammatical mistakes and ridiculous ideas. It's just comedy. I love to read and do reviews of fundamentalist books, and I still probably will do that some. Like right now, I'm reading the Doug Wilson one where he is about sex robots of all stupid things.
That's so bad.
Sex robots. He's talking about a good Christian boy that slept with a sex robot and murdered it. And they treat him, killed the sex robot. He squashed it in a trash compactor. And so they're charging him with murder. And it gets crazier from there. That's actually the most rational part of the whole book.
They're
Because
so
Doug Wilson he's out there.
they're so misogynistic. They hate female robots, Suzanne.
And the robot always speaks in sexual come-ons. That's what's really funny. You start squashing the robot in the trash compactor, and she's going, harder, baby, harder. It's like going, oh, what the hell is wrong with your mind? In the last chapter, he talked about animal robot brothels. And I was like, where is he getting this stuff?
So I imagine the brothels are for people and not for robots who
Yes,
have a
they're
hang
for
up on
people.
animals. They're for people.
Yes, people that want to have sex with animals and robotic animals.
I'm sorry, I didn't even see the robotic animal thing coming, Suzanne. I have to tell you something. I talk to comedians all the time, on the channel. And I don't think I've laughed this hard in a long time. So I just thought, when you're talking about animals and robots in terms of a brothel, I thought the robots, of course, were robot people, right?
Yeah.
But no, they're actually robotic.
There's animal ones and there's robotic humanoids.
Oh, okay. All right.
And the crazy thing is Isaac Asimov wrote a book years ago, like in the early 80s that I read, that actually does talk about the issues of what happens when robots transcend, what point do we consider it human or not. And he did a much better job of it than Doug. But Doug brings the interesting weirdness to all of it. I just laugh my ass off every time I read one of his books because it's obvious he doesn't know a damn thing about how the real world works.
Right.
He only knows Crazy Town.
Marmaduke Scarlet from the chat was saying which I imagine is this Laurie Alexander woman, she was on the back foot recently for her, quote, disciplinary measures, unquote, with her children.
Yeah. She also promotes Michael Pearl's beat 'em silly nonsense. And she has told this story a number of times about a Christmas morning where the kids got up and opened the presents too early, and she threw them outside and beat them and made them sit outside for 3 hours. I cannot imagine that. Just because they got up and opened the presents before her.
Yeah. Horrible. Yeah.
So.
Yes. Wow. I just get this conversation. It's a great conversation. And I usually write down notes about what to say next, but I laughed so much.
Well, I could tell you about, let's see, Doug says that Denver will be this huge drug capital, and from all the weed everybody is smoking, and he starts referencing dirty needles all over the ground. Somebody used to tell Doug Wilson that nobody injects marijuana.
I was going to say, I don't really see the connection between marijuana use and needle use.
I don't either, but he put it in his book.
You could make an argument that there would be a lot of, in case, there'd be a lot of edible wrappers littering the ground.
Exactly. That's what you would have.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, that would be bad, but I don't think they would be, his fan base would be too worried about marijuana Little Debbie wrappers littering the place. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they would be either. So he's just, I don't know what planet he's on. I thought his romance novel was bad, but this one is the worst.
Now I want to read through all of your blog posts over it, because the idea about someone like that writing a romance novel, it just seems so wrong in so many different ways.
It is wrong in every way. I think that review I did in like 3 or 4 parts because the book was rather thin. It's not like this one with the robot sex where I'm having to unpack everything and mention needles on the ground at the marijuana place.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So,
but it speaks to they don't know anything.
So Costa Rica is opening its borders completely on November 1 to all Americans. You guys are already cranking out
Americans. Yeah, right now it's parts of America,
right?
Europe, Asia. They're going to open it very soon to all of America, Europe, and Asia. I don't know when they're going to open it to places like Panama and Nicaragua. Not a clue. But they've
Right.
got some crazy strict rules if you come here.
Oh, really?
You have to have a recent, not just a recent, but like one of the rapid tests right before you arrive, showing that you're not. Yeah, no. None of the Rona. You got to be Rona free, and you got to buy the special insurance. It's quite costly to cover you in case you do get the Rona while you're here, and that's just
Interesting.
a bunch of different things like that that they're. And the tourist business is not come back. It's still a ghost town.
I have to
And I
ask.
don't foresee it happening. Who's going to travel?
I'm not. I am just doing day trips in my car. The idea about getting on an airplane, it just horrifies me.
Same here.
A friend of a friend was on an airplane, commercial flight, and she was sitting next to a guy who was dick nosing it, basically.
Oh,
His
God.
head had his mask
Yeah,
on
yeah.
here.
See a lot of Ticos do that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they take that stupid mask and they put it on, and it's like this.
Yeah. That's not doing the thing it needs to do.
Yeah, no kidding.
So, Suzanne, the big question I have
With the masking and other different recommendations. I mean, this is how we killed the 1918 flu, just by masking. But what do I know? I'm not Trump, and I'm horrified that drugs they gave him were really a bad lot. And then you give him a biologic. I was on a biologic for 8 years. The risks of having a heart attack or a stroke or cancer are, I mean, just astronomical on that drug, on those drugs.
I was talking to my girlfriend. I've talked about this a number of times. Is that I am surprised the man didn't stroke out or get a heart attack. And you know what he did?
The steroid they gave him?
Yeah. That's like my body, as I've gotten older, my body has changed its reaction to medications has changed dramatically. And so I have to be a lot more conservative about what if I do have to take a medication, what I take. But you could just tell Trump as soon as he got sick, he's like, give me everything, whatever you have. I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah. And that really concerned me, between the dexamethasone and the biologic, the Regeneron, that hasn't even been tested. Like I said, I've been on those things, and the protocol at first, especially these new ones, is pretty severe. And I was just horrified. I can't take steroids anymore. I'm steroid intolerant after an entire lifetime lived with asthma.
Yeah.
So that's off the table for me. But
so, Suzanne,
to know that he got that, it's like, and I get all hopped up on it.
So how difficult? Let's say Trump steals the election, because that's the only way he's going to be able to get a second term right now.
Yeah.
How difficult would it be for me to flee to Costa Rica?
Not difficult at all.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because here in Costa Rica, the dollar is king, and they love their American expats. Yeah. They really do. We happened on a bargain on our house. We bought our house for almost nothing compared to the States. I know you're in Boston, and the prices of real estate are insane there, right?
Oh, they're crazy. I was just walking past my old house. I live in 25 years ago, I lived in this area, and now I'm back up here. And I remember how much I paid for it back in the day, and now it's crazy. Well over $500,000.
It's like our little house near the D.C. Near D.C. We had it built for like $91,000, sold it for like $300.
Sure. So Costa Rica, I could flee to Costa Rica and live relatively comfortably on all that mad money I'm making from Patheos. Then that's what you're telling me.
Well, I don't know about the mad money from Patheos, but here's the thing with that is everything here is cheaper. Example, my cell phone bill. My cell phone that used to run me us about $50 or $60 each a month for each of our cell phones. Pay $10 a month. $10. My cable and internet, which is exactly the same as in the States, all the same channels, everything, $140 in the States. I pay $30 a month here.
Oh, wow.
So everything is a lot cheaper except for electricity. Electricity is the same price. And house prices, especially now, there are huge bargains to be had because so many gringos have fled.
Oh, wow.
There's a house that I looked at. We were buying our house 2 years ago. We looked at this place that's, 2.5 a mountaintop overlooking the ocean from 3 sides of the house.
Wow.
4,000 square feet. It originally listed for over 3. Right now, it's just under 100,000.
That's incredible.
It is incredible.
Is it high enough? Because I have a bug issue. I don't like insects.
Well, then you're gonna have to hire somebody to come spray.
Is there? I know that there's something a bug line, right? That you could be possibly like high enough in a building, or if you're like in a high enough elevation that you don't have as many insect problems. Is there anything like that in Costa Rica?
I don't really know. We do have a lot of bugs. I'm not going to lie to you about that. And the bugs don't really bother me. It's the scorpions that sometimes come in the house I don't like much. But the bugs, you just have somebody come out and spray. They've got pretty much all the same services here. Get somebody to spray your house. Like I said, most things are a lot cheaper here. You have to be careful, though. Dedicated to separating gringos from their money. So if you're careful, that's not a problem. If you're not careful, you'll get taken. I've seen it happen.
Oh yeah. I imagine that there is a cottage industry and how to set.
Oh, there is.
Anywhere, just like anywhere here in the States.
Anywhere.
It's like people are just trying to separate fools from their money, and it gets worse during the pandemic. It's like, capitalism goes into overdrive to devour itself.
Yeah, here the petty crime has gone up quite a bit because of COVID. So I'm hoping that we get a few tourist dollars coming in, or the government coughs up some money, because people are really going hungry here. A lot of local people.
Are they? Yeah, that's dangerous.
Yeah, it is dangerous. We had somebody try to pry one of our windows open a couple of nights ago, and we're kind of 12-foot concrete wall. So, wow. And I heard him when he did it. He jumped over the wall and he hit the ground, and I didn't have the burglar alarm on because we were in the house and we're all went to take a look, and he ran. But everything is so sealed, that's not going to happen anyway. He was just barking up the wrong tree, the wrong gringo to try and grab their stuff. So
sure. Is there?
There are places here that are cooler. So if you need a cold climate,
I need a cold climate. Yeah.
And it's even cheaper to live there because there are fewer gringos. And like we were in Copa, where my husband taught English for 4 months. We were in Copa for 4 months. Mm-hmm. It's very, very cold up there at night, and the rents are only $150 a month.
Oh, you're singing my song. You're singing my song for that. $150.
Yeah, and I know gringos there.
Right. Yeah. That sounds like a nice and cool. Maybe not a whole lot of mosquitoes. It's really the mosquitoes I think I have a lot of issues with.
And if you're from the north, you might. My husband has terrible problems with bug bites, and I'm really surprised at that. I think it's because he's never been exposed to a tropical climate. I grew up in South Louisiana getting bitten by mosquitoes all the time. I never react. He reacts terribly. I react not at all.
Right. So we're heading down to the end of our hour. Is there a question you wanted me to ask you, but I didn't? Was there a topic you wanted to touch on? And this isn't about plugs or where people can find you online, but was there something substantial you wanted to talk about, but we just didn't get around to it?
Well, the only thing I can think of is just talking about how the combination of the COVID and the election is just driving people crazy right now. We all need to just be more kind, I think, to each other and try to be more tolerable, because we know that the other side is not going to be. They're going to be absolutely as horrible as they can get.
I think it's, both of us have a social work background, or, I have psychology, and we know how to de-escalate agitated people. Yeah. And, you definitely don't want to yell at someone who's already agitated.
Yes, even though it's tempting sometimes.
It's very tempting. But I just hope that we're able to get through the next, we're 15 days away from the election now. It probably won't get resolved until, just trying to avoid the violence and just try to keep a cool head. I think
Mhm.
that's probably the best, and not to take the bait because
That's
conservatives
it.
will want to bait you. And as we're both doing social media, blogging, YouTube, I don't respond to every comment, every negative comment, and that's what keeps me sane, or one of the many things that keeps me.
I jumped even to Jerks for Jesus result of my problems with the IFB. I've been advised to lock everything down, and I've had to.
Yeah.
Um, I'll put it up again someday, but I just laughed at how insanely over the top people get. And you're like, look at that going, really? This is what you're choosing to get agitated about?
It's remarkable. So what was that site again for people who didn't? It was Jokers for Jesus, or was
No, it
it
was Jerks for Jesus.
Jerks for Jesus? Jerks for
And I used to
Jesus.
throw all of my negative comments there, and it was nice because it made everybody shut up. I got far fewer negative comments when I would answer them in a comical way. People realized I just wasn't going to put up with it, you know?
Yeah. But it's gotten so bad you had to close that down, at least temporarily.
Yeah, at least until after the election. Because like I said, I think a lot of this is election driven. Is just nutty. I just don't get it at all from these people.
Yeah. That hopefully everyone will calm down in a month or two. Hopefully. We'll see what happens though. Suzanne, this has been a lot of fun talking to you.
It has. It has.
Like I said, I haven't laughed this hard for quite a while, and that's good. I
that is good. We need laughter.
We need laughter. Oh, that's for sure. Where can people find you online?
Well, right now they can still find me at No Longer Quivering as part of Pathos.
Yeah.
I'm also on YouTube under Suzanne Kalulu. I'm still going to be on YouTube. I got to reshuffle that and do some things. And I'm on Facebook and Twitter under my own name, Suzanne Titkemeyer. You can find me pretty easily. Some of it will be comedy I'll be writing because I've got to do a book that I mostly started about male-female relationships. It's pure comedy that came out of me working with a bunch of young women at Child Help that had not the first clue how to deal with relationships.
Oh,
and
wow.
I heard so much craziness that I just had to do something to answer those poor girls. Say, please don't do that.
Well, when you have your books out, whenever you have your a book out, you should definitely let me know. And you can come back on. We'll talk about the book. We'll do some more laughs.
Yeah, we'll laugh.
Yeah. I think that'll be good therapy for both of us. Very good.
Yeah. Always good.
Thanks for coming on the show. Everyone in the chat, thanks a lot. It's been great, communicating with all of you. Take care, everyone. And see you later.
Bye.
I'm going to hit the end broadcast button.